Howdy everybody, filming at a kind of difficult angle just to capture the beauty of this tree, but I wanted to talk about nitrogen sources, or at least organic nitrogen sources, available to most homesteaders. A couple of them I won't have examples of because I don't have, such as livestock. Livestock produce a lot of urine and feces. That's a great nitrogen source, but I don't have any animals aside from cats, and I'm sure that they defecate in the gardens here and there. Especially around my trees, I don't mind at all. I try to keep that away from my vegetables and things like that. But trees, I'm sure they're getting a little nitrogen from that, but I don't have a good example of that, so I won't be getting too far into it. But to start off with, we'll start with nitrogen fixers. This is a nitrogen fixing tree. The way that nitrogen fixing plants work, I have a short that's going to be sort of an intro to this, but I'll go over it again in the full video right here. They get sugars from their leaves, these beautiful leaves. They create sugar from sunlight like all plants do, but they take it to their roots and they have a team with bacteria that can fix nitrogen from the air. So these nitrogen fixing bacteria get the sugars from above, all these sugars created by this big beautiful tree, and they turn that into nitrogen in the soil, and a little bit gets stolen by the grass and other things around it. But for the most part, it's created right up against the roots of this tree, and so the tree soaks it right up and uses it to push out way more growth, way faster than most trees can compete with, and fix more nitrogen into more roots, and the cycle repeats itself. You can then cut these, throw them over by other trees that can't fix their own nitrogen, and as they break down into the soil, they will release nitrogen back into the soil for those trees. I also have a few other examples here. This is a standard pole bean. I don't know the exact variety because I just kind of mix them up and throw them everywhere. But beans, you've probably heard, if you've heard anything about nitrogen fixers, that beans are nitrogen fixers. So these, while they are also going to produce flowers and pods to give me food, they will also be fixing nitrogen in the soil and in their leaves, and at the end of the year, I'll harvest the pods. That's where most of the nitrogen goes into the beans, is into the pods. But a little bit is still going to be in all these leaves and in the soil, and they will naturally die back over winter, settle into the soil, and feed the soil. But they are an annual, so they must be replanted every single year. Similar to beans, but perennial, back here we have Apios americana, one of my all-time favorite plants in the garden. Very, very beautiful, very ornamental. They don't produce much in the way of beans, but they do produce large, protein-rich tubers, nutritionally similar to potatoes, but 3 times the protein. They make beautiful flowers sometimes. I think I've missed the mark on this video, but I've got videos of them on the past. I have a whole bunch of videos specifically on Apios americana, because I could talk about it all day. But my point being, there is a large variety of growth types of different nitrogen fixers. Some of them are herbaceous little flowers that'll pop up and fix nitrogen and die back to the soil. Some of them are vines like the beans and the Apios. Some of them are trees, and this tree can easily reach 30, 40 feet or more if I just let it keep growing. So nitrogen fixers are a great way to get organic nitrogen, and a great way to do it without any extra inputs. If you really want to, you never have to chop and drop them. You'll get a little bit of nitrogen fixation in the soil and wherever the leaves fall every single year. So there's not a lot of reason to stress about it. Just add some to your food forests and your gardens, and they will help whether you put the extra effort into chop and drop or not. Now, just a few steps away, we're going to be talking about what's considered by a lot of people to be a fairly gross option. I don't personally use it because I plan to eventually sell, and I don't want to deal with any legality or issues surrounding it, but many people talk about using urine. If you're going to, this is probably your new favorite plant right here. This is called comfrey. The flowers have all passed, but if I chop it down, it'll feed itself to this tree, and it will send up all new shoots and all new flowers, so I need to chop and drop it for the bees. In fact, I'll rip it out of the ground right now, or rip it off at the ground. But all these grow really rapidly, and they can take a ton more nitrogen than other plants can. Straight nitrogen can burn a lot of plant roots, but not these. You'd need really high concentration to bother these. They'll take straight urine. So, as an option for someone who's into using urine in the garden, Again, I don't because I plan to sell. The only thing I use it for is on young trees. I will pour it on them to keep the deer off them. But that ends long before we get any fruit. But this is exactly how you use it. You chop and drop it, or you just throw it around the base of a tree. It breaks down and feeds the tree. Now, if I wanted these to grow back really fast and aggressively, all I'd do is pour some urine right there along the base of that plant. It will soak up the urine, grow really fast and rapidly, and then you can do this over and over all year long. It eats the urine, and then you can feed it to other things. That way, if you're worried about, obviously you wouldn't want to put urine on your tomatoes because you're going to eat those. You can put urine on these and put it on your tomatoes. Let it break down at the root zone of the tomato and feed your tomato plants. So that covers urine. It's a little bit gross, but I figured it was worth mentioning even though I don't really use it. I'd rather use animal excrement because at least most of what we can get as a disease isn't transferable between us and the animals compared to human disease spreads really, really rapidly. But there's the first two. I'm going to make a cut and I'm going to show off another method. Mainly this would be my second and third method to really add a lot of nitrogen to my gardens. So we'll make a cut and see you in a moment. Okay, right here may not exactly be a method, it's more of a representation of a method. But this is a great big sunflower that I planted in a spot that I can't water or care for in any way, shape, or form realistically. It's currently growing bigger than the plant that it was supposed to be sort of a companion to. This is a wild plum, but this is currently about a 6'2" tall sunflower. And where did it get its nitrogen? Well, I didn't use urine on it, and it's not a nitrogen fixer, neither is the plum. So where's its nitrogen coming from? We had a really stormy year. Storms zap nitrogen in the atmosphere so hard that it changes into a physical form rather than a form in air. And then the rain, along with that lightning, washes it down to the soil where it soaks in very quickly. You literally get free fertilizer every time you have a bad storm. Even more so than that, while these plants can't coexist with it, snowfall works like a sponge and it literally scrubs the nitrogen out of the air. So snow used to be called poor man's fertilizer. So snow and lightning are great ways that you end up getting more nitrogen into your plant cycle. And of course, just as I described with the nitrogen fixers, when this dies at the end of the year, all of that nitrogen that it hasn't used to make seeds will just fall back to the soil, feeding next year's growth. It's also worth note that just like I mentioned with the beans, most of the nitrogen goes into the beans. If you really want to maximize nitrogen out of sunflowers, it uses up most of it when it makes its flower. So wait until the flower is about to start, chop it at the base, chop it up, and leave it around your tree. That's the fastest way to get nitrogen. I'm going to harvest the sunflower seeds on this one myself, but if you're just looking to fertilize things around it, chop and drop them right when they're about to flower. One more cut and one more method coming up. All right, everybody, here's the last one. This one's also kind of an oddball, but everything green has nitrogen in it. All these weeds and all these garden plants that are all mixed up together, if I want to, I can yank up all the weeds, throw them in a bucket with water, and let them rot. And that rot down mixture is within here. It's probably going to be pretty gross, but I'm going to lift the lid and show you. Yep, there's some mushrooms and fungus growing on the top, but if you push through that top layer, or just take it out and use it like fertilizer, there's a bunch of nasty, smelly liquid in there. But that stuff is garden gold. In fact, it's so strong it will burn the plant roots, like I mentioned earlier with the urine. So what you do, or at least what I do, so I take like an Arizona tea jug and I shove it in until I get, I don't know, maybe less than a third of a cup. It takes very little. And then I fill the rest of that jug up with water. I have more full-length videos on this, I should mention. So if you want to learn more, they're out there. But you want to fill that up and really dilute it down because the nitrogen in this is super potent. And it's super smelly. If you get it on your skin, you're going to smell like rotting plants for days. So just keep that in mind. But hopefully you learned something. Hopefully that gave you a new perspective on different different plants, different ways to fix nitrogen, different ways to fertilize your soil organically. And I'll see you in another video as soon as I can. Goodbye, everybody.